And I'm so honored to share space with you and share a lot of my passions, my research. Okay. ¿Puedo traducir?
Bueno.
Oh, okay, okay.
Pero tienes que traer
Sí,
porque yo pensaba en hacer la pero quieres que se grabe también la traducción.
No, no importa.
¿Y qué tal, Alexis?
No, lo importante es que hables. O sea, si lo tienes.
She's Dr.
Bueno.
Dr. Lopez.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
¿Estás tú traduciendo directamente para ella?
¿Qué prefieres? Y para cuando presenten en español o traducir.
Yo puedo hablar en español, pero no vas a entender.
¿Qué es lo que prefieren para? Es bueno figurarlo ya que puedan empezar sí. Y luego cuando hablen en español, sí, en español, puedo traducir para los que quieren que les traduzca en inglés. Sí, no, pero si quieren repetir.
Bueno, podemos, o a lo mejor podemos pulsar lo que hemos usado del traductor de Google, de Zoom, como lo habíamos hecho, si te conectas directamente.
¿Pueden tenerlo aquí?
Sí, déjeme ver si se puede poner ahí para.
¿No necesito hacer esto?
Creo que no puedes hacer. No, no puedes hacer.
Espera, es que la vez pasada fue un relajo, pero a ver si ahora está mejor.
También lo puedo hacer en voz alta, más que diario. Como tenemos estos, podemos utilizar.
Okay, let's try.
Hello, hola. I'm speaking in English.
No, it is not. Yeah, the translation is. Carla, come here. Ven para acá, Carla. Aquí está la traducción y aquí se ve.
Okay. How. Se dice más en español. Como los. ¿No?
¿No lo quiero? ¿Está bien? ¿Vas a venir? Sí, no, la iba a hacer.
Pero eso puede ser aquí en directo.
¿En directo?
Yo creo que it works.
No, bueno.
Ok, entonces ya continúa.
Cuando quieres que traduzcan,
Okay, somos listos. Listos.
pero si lo haces
Okay. I'm a third-year PhD student in special education. My research focuses on youth taking charge of their own experiences in special education and pushing back against oppressive systems that they experience in their schooling every day. ¿Está bien? Okay. So I'm really proud to share the labor of my collective with everybody here. It's very special. It was very special working with Dr. Gonzalez, who also, took part in this work. It's really important work, and something that Dr. Anima has told everybody is that important research, radical research, it's never done alone. You can never be silos. It's really important to have a collective mindset when it comes to your work. Nothing is never done alone that can impact a lot, right? So something for my undergraduate here is to remember that sometimes academia makes us compete with each other, and we have to try to resist that because that is part of the colonial legacy that we're all experiencing. Yes. Oh, yes. I forgot.
Oh, pensé que estaba leyendo.
Oh, I think she's reading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. ¿Todo bien? Sí. Okay. Next slide, please.
Sure.
Okay, so our collective is called the Immigrant Inclusion and Equity Collective. It's part of a joint effort between the University of Arizona and the University of Madison in Wisconsin. And I think that our work is, dedicated to bringing the marginalized voices of schooling out to the forefront, right? I'm gonna apologize in advance, I haven't had my coffee, but, and also, if the energy in the room is kind of low, I'm gonna ask that all of us write one question per slide, or one comment, it doesn't have to be a question. So when I was tailoring this, for my undergrad colleagues, I was really wondering about how captivated and compelled you would be towards this presentation. And something that I have in my head as a special education teacher is differentiation, right? Who is my audience? How are they going to access this information? So because of you all, I put 2 vocabulary words that you might not be familiar with, right? In case you need a thorough explanation. So the first one is IDEA. This is a law. And it basically guarantees students with disabilities an opportunity, well, not an opportunity, but the right to have a free and appropriate public education. And this designates parents as part of the decision-making process. So this is really important stuff to learn, especially if you're on pre-service, if you're studying to be an educator. Something that I took away as a special education teacher is that even though you are going to be an elementary school teacher, a high school teacher, you're gonna have students with varying abilities, right? So in my opinion, it could be an unpopular opinion, is that we should all be certified in the US as special education teachers, because that creates a more equitable and accessible learning environment. The second vocabulary word is fugitivity. This is something that I've come to explore in my graduate, student life. It's something that breathes life into my research. It's a framework really dear to me. So the most simple explanation I could give you is that fugitivity is a framework in which oppressed people are fostering ways to freedom, right? So we have varying systems of oppression, and this is people experiencing joy, experiencing freedom in the ways that they create. All right, so this is very pivotal to this paper that I'm going to share with you. Originally, this paper was presented at a major conference called AERA. I think it's American Educational Research Association. If you continue your paths into exploring education in graduate school, like in Brenda, you might attend this conference, right? So this is something that I presented originally for a crowd that knew all these words, that knew all the lingo, but I really kept you guys in mind when I was kind of changing up this slideshow. Okay, next. Okay, so you might have read the title. And yes, it is a very provocative, very compelling title.
Can you repeat the title?
Oh, sure. It's Angels, Agents of Disruption. And it's a very long title, but bilingual Latina immigrant parents navigating special education systems. Okay, so Goodyear grew up with angels being something really big in their households. Who's familiar with angels? Raise your hands. I'm not gonna go on single direction. Okay, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think. And you're going to think about how this manifested in your experience. And I'm gonna call on a couple of people to share out their thinking. So we're gonna think for a little bit. Think about how this showed up. Okay, now is the time to share. Who would like to share? Yes.
Like for me, it was like being taught like prayers, like literally the right corner of the Amina. So praying that like every time with my thea, like before I leave the house. So that was just like a constant thinking about family and being taken care of by an angel.
Absolutely, yes. Has anybody seen this prayer card?
I was gonna say the same thing.
Right?
Pray this every night. And
Yeah.
same exact picture.
So what idea does that prayer and that image evoke? There's no wrong answer. Hey, Brenda, would you like to share?
Again, like just like protection, like care, but like, you know, I'm disabled.
Yes. Okay, one last share. Okay, I know my voice is kind of.
No, it's fine. It's you're good.
Okay. One more person. If not, that's okay. Nobody wants to get on with this?
Oh, I just said like protection and care and like kind of like having like a safe, like welcome you with your environment.
Yeah. So if you grew up in a household where it was rooted in Mexican spirituality or Catholic spirituality, Catholic mindsets, you would be privy to this type of imagery. Now, something that I envision for parents who are navigating various oppressive systems is that there is this constant watchfulness and this constant state of caring, right, cariño for their children, right? In a place like the US, where you're often disconnected and disenfranchised, in school systems and healthcare systems, you have to keep a watchful eye, right? So this evokes something that people have to do, something that is required of them, that is extra, right? That other non-marginalized people have to do. So this image for me evoked our participants in this project, right? I especially like this image, this Nana. She's like knitting. And this is actually done by an artist named Yolanda Lopez, who's a prominent Chicana artist and who is somebody I really look up to as an artist. And her work is going to be showcased in these slides as well. So the kind of conceptualization of angels are guardian angels, right? Parents who watch over their children, even when they're not physically present, right? Which is really, really hard to do. Okay, la próxima, por favor. Okay, so here's the problem. We're going to create this problem space, right? So participation of parents is guaranteed under IDEA. However, that is not something that happens, right? There are varying barriers that occur when it comes to translation, when it comes to receiving literature in their own language, when it comes to embedded racism in schools, discrimination in schools. Participation is not always guaranteed, right? And even more so for parents who might not have English as their home language, who are multilingual. They, as it is, as a special education teacher, I see these barriers occur every day. But when you don't speak the language, when you're not familiar with how culture is communicated in schooling, you are definitely left out of these processes. And we're going to get to, witness these things happen when you read the words of the parents later. However, something comes out of this, right? I don't know if we spent some time in schools, but a lot of the narratives that come out of this is, oh, well, they don't want to come to school. They don't want to be involved, right? They don't care. They're too busy working. So parents are often framed as disengaged, too busy, careless when it comes to the schooling of their children, right? And to me, education and schooling are two different things, right? I could say that I'm a bad student, but I'm a good scholar, right? So it's kind of those connotations where schooling is the compliance systems that students experience every day, right? Whereas education comes from the innate desire to want to learn things, the ways in which you are able to mobilize information and knowledge and wisdom, right? So we are now understanding that this dominant narrative is pervasive. Well, we've always known, right? But this is always something that is talked about when it comes to parents. Next slide. So, as part of this, okay, very good. The research question is very beefy, all right? And I put it in Spanish for everybody. But the main goal is to answer this question. How do bi and multilingual Latina immigrant parents navigate oppressive and exclusionary K-12 special education systems to shape more equitable and inclusive educational experiences and outcomes for their children with disabilities? So we want to investigate how parents are engaging with their students' schooling, with their children's schooling, right? When these systems were designed to keep them out to the margins. Okay, how are we doing? We're doing good? Want me to keep trucking on? Any questions? We could like provide some examples. No? La próxima. Gracias. Okay, so fugitivity. I gave you some examples of what to read in case you are curious about what fugitivity entails. This per se, Mr. Carter Woodson, he could be, he's not a fugitive scholar per se, but he is one of the founders of Black tradition, right? So when I read his book, I was able to understand how students, especially Black students, were definitely facing barriers and oppression in their schooling systems earlier on, right? I'm trying to like scaffold my language, so that's why it's all choppy, right? So if you are interested in Black traditional thought or Black tradition, I would definitely say yes, read this book. Another book that is near and dear to my heart is a book called Wayward Lives, Beautiful Experiments. This is by Sadia Hartman. And this is such a profound book for me. In the book, Sadia writes about women and girls who are trying to be free, right? This is pretty much experiencing life after enslavement. And she forefronts the experiences of Black women and girls who are not neatly digestible by society. So if they want to not get married, if they're queer, if they want to be an artist, or if they want to explore their sexual freedom, those experiences are considered wayward, right? So every day, these women and girls are trying to create experiences and worlds in which they are truly free, in which they can live life to the fullest and experience all the joys and the wonder that they could obtain by being free. Another book that is really pivotal for this paper is Fugitive Pedagogy by Mr. Jarvis Givens, or Dr. Jarvis Givens, profound scholar in fugitivity and something that is cited throughout the paper. And what he talks about in this book is how teachers could pretty much embolden their students and have ways of freedom seeking in everyday schooling experiences, right? And this is a piece of artwork that I saw in one of the articles that I was reading for this work. The name of the artist is Raphael, and it's actually in an article by Justin Coles, Dr. Justin Coles. And so that to me is like a beautiful piece of Afrofuturism, right? Where new worlds emerge in this freedom seeking, right? So how does this translate to Latina immigrant parents? Well, we have to thank our Black scholars, our Black traditional thinkers, or Black radical thinkers for creating worlds in which we are able to explore our own fugitivity, right? Our own freedom seeking. My throat is like this.
Can you just give a brief example of something that maybe he shows us fugitivity pedagogy? I mean, exactly what is the meaning of that? I suppose that he's giving one example, so you can give an example.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So something that I remember reading in that book in particular is how Eurocentric curriculum is taught to students. I think that teachers have the opportunity, despite the policies and despite everything that all the compliance systems that are placed upon them, they have an opportunity to deviate from the curriculum that's supposed to be taught and embark on an exploration journey of things that counter those narratives. So it's everyday teaching, however, through a lens of deciphering what is not serving your students, what is not the truth, and being able to embolden your students to be critical thinkers and have this critical consciousness. Is that good?
Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Would-
And Van Gibbons that specifically talks about the work Black teachers did in fugitive ways.
Mhm.
So they weren't allowed to teach about Black history, Black justice, but they would do it. But the second anyone official walked in, they would look back over.
Mhm.
You know, so they would do these things in fugitive ways.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Any other questions about fugitivity? Okay, I implore you to do your own research on fugitivity, explore how that impacts your own experience as scholars, and how that could impact your own teaching, right? Your own interaction and your own shared space with youth. Because it's very, very beautiful stuff.
And just so that in the US context, and I don't know if there are policies like this in Mexico, but like for instance, in Arizona. The state Secretary of Education had determined that teaching through the lens of a cultural group. Like, for example, there used to be a famous Mexican American Studies program where students were excelling academically, doing great. But he said when you teach through the lens of an ethnic group, these people could overthrow the government, so it's not allowed. So there are these rules and policies in place that really restrict what you're able to do in the classroom.
Okay.
Anybody else wanna have a share?
But in Mexico is something similar and maybe something different because in the classroom the teacher has the protest for
The right.
or say something to
The right, isn't it? The derecho.
yeah the protest the right the protest to teaching who he prefer, but the gate the
Like the curriculum?
yeah, like, yeah, so the curriculum has determined for the Secretaría of, bueno, de la Secretaría de Educación Pública. Yeah, the institute in education here in Mexico. And for that, I think is something similar, something different, because the professor has the power to decide who teaching in a classroom, but he cannot teaching something different or ours or some things very different that this government says.
Well, at the university level, you are supposed to have like the freedom of really teaching what you want to teach.
Yeah, but
But that's just a university level, and all the other levels, you cannot teach whatever, what is not on the curriculum.
yeah, but the service here in Mexico, the elementary school, I don't know,
Exactly, the
Yeah,
elementary school.
have 95 of the population of the here in Mexico. And for this, I think in that population.
Well, it's long been kind of the same in the US, like K-12 has more restrictions than at the university level. There has been like intellectual freedom, but that's been under attack for.
Yes, we have a lot of book bans, especially from our state in Arizona. So a lot of teachers, they employ fugitive pedagogy or fugitive teaching by teaching the books that were banned. But it's like a secret, they have to do it covertly, right? But it is important for students to have the building of their critical consciousness and to be able to be discerning of the materials that they are forced to consume, right? So this manifests in many ways, right? See, algo más?
No.
No?
Sorry.
Okay, la próxima. How are you doing on time? I feel like I'm taking.
I think you have time.
Yeah, okay. All right, now to the good stuff. This is a study, our collective employed. And this is our methodology. So I have to say that I did not have the privilege of interacting with our participants, with our parents and specifically. This was a subset of a larger study on parent and youth inclusion. So what we did was we shared this data, and my colegas, they embarked on their own research and they wrote their own papers, right? Our participants were, for this specific paper, there were 12 bi and multilingual Latina parents of children with disabilities. So I say Latina. Okay, I should reframe this prompt. Why do you think I'm saying Latina and not Latinx or Mexican? Why? Come on.
Speaking to Spanish speaking parents, perhaps.
Yes, that's all. And why not Latino?
Majority like.
Okay. What do you think? What's Latinx? What does that mean?
Supposed to be gender neutral for Latino Latina.
Okay, yeah, right?
I know.
And yeah. So why Latina and not Latinx?
Oh, you were saying Latina. Okay.
Latina, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so like what Marisol said, Latina is more accessible linguistically for Spanish speaking people to say, right? And I went to the museum the other day and I saw Latinx, but I think that when you go to communities in which there's a lot of Spanish speakers, especially in the south side of Tucson, they're not like, you know, Latinx, we're not going to use Latinx, you know, it's not accessible for them to say. So that's why I use the word Latina, right? So anyhow, it's not just Mexican, but people of Mexican heritage. It's also people from Central America, and I think maybe some from South America. I'm not sure, maybe it's more Central and Mexican. So Central American and Mexican. So 12 Latina parents of children with disabilities were used in the study, right? And we did individual focus groups as well as group focus groups. And what we did, this is a qualitative project, which means we're not analyzing stats, we're not seeing numbers, we're not doing any of that. We are looking at the transcripts, building assertions, and like categorizing what themes we see within the transcripts, right? So that was our methodology. Okay, next. Okay, so here's our first finding. A little bit of a backstory on Javier. This is a pseudonym for one of our participants. He was a parent of a nonverbal child who isn't able to communicate what they experienced at school, right? And so here we see Javier saying how important it is to be vigilant. Well, not only vigilant, but like know what's going on, right, in school. So that's both in English and Spanish. I'll read the English. I'm saying that if you go once a week, twice a week, you just have to do it. You have to be visible. You have to make yourself visible. They see you, they see that you are participating. Make sure they see that you are looking out for your child. And then I'll read it in Spanish, why not? Estoy diciendo que vayas una vez a la semana, 2 veces a la semana, simplemente pues tienes que hacerlo. Tienes que hacer visibilidad, tienes que hacerte visible, que te vean que estás participando, que ellos vean que estás al tanto de tus hijos, right? So here we see Javier saying they have to see you watching, right? Is that something that people usually think? Not really, right? We don't really hear those voices. But he's saying, well, you know, they need to know that you're present because they have your child, right? All right, next slide. Here we see Javier. Uno atrás.
Perdón.
Gracias. See, here we see Javier continuing, right? And for this specific excerpt, he had just witnessed his child come home with bruises, right? And he went to the school and nobody was able to tell him what happened to his child, which is, of course, very troubling. So what he says here is, I went right to the teachers and they didn't know anything. I spoke to the bus drivers as well. He didn't know anything either. At that moment, I reported it to the police. The police took the report and then went right to the principal. What is going on here? This, that, or the other thing, right? Fui precisamente y fui a hablar con los profesores, no sabían nada. Se lo hablo al de bus, que tampoco no sabía nada. En ese instante fui y lo reporté con la policía. La policía tomó el parte y al instante fue con la directora. ¿Qué está pasando? Este y el otro, right? Forgive my Spanish pronunciation. Anyhow, so this first finding is we witnessing this parent take on the stance of angel, right? They're being vigilant. They're keeping guard over their children, but not only that, but they have to go the extra mile for something to be done, right? When their child's safety is compromised, right? So this is one of the systems that parents have to undertake. And unfortunately, Javier had to go and escalate the situation, but this is them forging their own pathway to securing their child's safety and well-being, right? So that's our first finding. La próxima. So while the first finding is within school systems, our second finding showcases parents forging networks and forging systems outside of school structures, right? Them creating ways of keeping watch and safeguarding their children and making sure that their children has accessible avenues to their schooling and their education. So,
No, did
Oh,
you
sí.
find his son? I suppose, hopefully. Did you find him?
oh, I'm not sure of the transcripts. Do you remember what had happened to Javier?
No, he didn't know how his son was injured.
Oh,
Oh,
but-
and what's that? Okay.
Yeah, sí, yeah. So he no sabía por qué se tenía como sangre o
Sí,
sí,
herido.
gracias, sí, y nadie estaba hablando con él.
Ya.
Sí, sí, y él necesitaba ir al policía, al manejador del autobús para tener información.
And then
Ah.
shadow spaces en español como espacios de sombra.
Ujú.
Espacios
¿Espacios de sombra? Okay. Sí, espacios de sombra, shadow spaces. So this is our second finding. In shadow spaces, we see parents creating ways to support their children to make the education more accessible, right? And these are spaces that aren't prescribed by normal schooling systems, right? Normal schooling processes. These are spaces in which they create these structures in order to make education safe, right? Safe and accessible. So Graciela is a parent, I believe, of a high school student, if memory serves me correctly. And she is talking about how she needs to have everybody's information written down, like her own phone book, in order to make sure that her daughter is receiving her services. Something parents shouldn't have to do, but they need to do, right? So what she says here is, I try to investigate who her teachers are, her schedules, her therapists. I go to school 2 or 3 times a day because it's necessary. And I have the phone numbers of the people that are in direct contact with my daughter so that at any given moment, or to know what action to take, right? Okay, and then in my Spanish. Entonces, en caso de yo trato de investigar cuáles son sus maestros, sus horarios, sus terapistas. Yo voy a la escuela 2 o 3 veces al día. Así es necesario. Y mantengo los teléfonos directos de las personas que están en contacto directo con mi hija para que en un momento dado o saber qué acción tomar, right? So again, this is usually not the case. Usually in school systems, like parents, they entrust their child to the school. But here we have this mother creating her own network, this shadow space of information in order to care for her child. Okay, la próxima. All right, now this lady, she's a baddie.
Can we go back one?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I just have a comment on that. Yeah.
Sí.
So like as a teacher in like similar spaces,
Atrás.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
like this is something that I've like witnessed like countless amount of times, like where these parents have these things, or like I work in the high school setting, so I remember a couple different students who were having these like issues, and I would get a call from the parent before I even knew about the issue, because the shadow space already informed the parent about the problems that were going on. So it's just like I'm like, yes, like I agree very much, but I think it's really like within the school space, especially like in Tucson, like there's so much families that work in the school that they have these like secret shadow spaces where people are informing parents and taking care of each other that way before me as a teacher even knows that the problem going on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes. Yes.
And that here, we don't really have that much, that opportunity of having shadows with children. That's just recent, and that is just, as I know, in private schools. I don't think there are in public schools that figures helping the children with special needs. Yeah.
Gracias. Okay. El siguiente.
Yeah.
La próxima. Okay. So this lady was a superstar in our research. Her name's Daisy, and she was definitely somebody who went after what she thought was necessary, not only for her child but her community, right? So she created this space, this shadow space of getting parents to engage with the school. So the school had this like parents' night, right? And they sent out flyers, and they asked the students to put the flyers in their backpacks. But guess what? The flyers never made it home, so the parents never knew what happened or what is going on, that there was an event that they were invited to. So she saw this process and she's like, what the heck, that is that's not going to reach, our Latino parents, our Latina parents. And because in my experience, I saw my abuela call all her friends. She rallied them up. Word of mouth is really powerful in Latina culture, right? And Latinas ways of like getting people involved. So guess what she did? This is what she said. I made 200 phone calls. I invited the families one by one, and it was the best Latino parents' night that there ever was, right? And then in español, hice 200 llamadas, invité a uno de las familias y fue el mejor evento que hubo de padres latinos. So this is her creating a network of engagement for parents to participate in the school. Okay, el siguiente.
Oh, can I add one thing?
Oh, yes.
Daisy? Oh, I love it, that in that same excerpt, she says, her response to the school sending out flyers, that's just lazy.
Oh, yeah.
That's lazy.
Yeah, important point to make, yes. Yeah, she did say it. Sometimes what we see as efficient is lazy, because it doesn't engage people in the way that they should be engaged. What happened to talking? What happened to having conversations, right? Like something I experienced at my school the past year is that, oh, well, it's on Parent Square, which is like this platform that parents are supposed to tune in and like look at all the information. But like, I don't think that there are avenues in which teachers and school staff are engaging with parents directly. This is also Daisy. She was very, very concerned about the services and the care that her daughter was receiving at her school. And so something that she did was she actually sought employment at the school in order to better watch over her daughter. So this lack of trust that she experienced, the lack of care that she witnessed at that school, she created a shadow space of inserting herself in these structures in order to care for her child, right? So what she says is, I remember talking on the phone, sending the application. I called and I kept asking and asking. And I think I bothered her to the point that she finally said, you know what, come on in and let's do an interview. Come on in and let's do it. And from that moment on, everything was easier, you know? But when they did my interview, obviously, they said, Daisy, you don't have any experience teaching. And what we can do for you is, I think you could be an ideal person for a special education assistant. And it was true, I really was. I feel like it was really the best position they could have given me at the moment. So she was able to get a special education teaching or a special education assistant to better watch over and care for her child. So she is able to subvert systems and implant herself there in order to care for her child. Okay, let's again. Gracias. Okay, so those were the findings. One, parents had to remain extra vigilant in order to ensure that their children receive the care and services that they needed, right, at their school. Thus the angels and agents, right? Angels meaning that they were vigilant, agents meaning that they created ways in which they were able to have some sort of control or agency within school structures. And the second finding were these shadow spaces in which they created avenues in order to sustain the education of their child, maintaining accessibility, maintaining care. Yes. So what we now know for implications is that parents are not disengaged, right? Obviously, they are moving around and within systems, subverting whatever processes are there, breaking the rules, basically. Like, who doesn't like a good rule breaker? I know I'm a good rule breaker, right? So they are oh my gosh. So participation extends beyond school-defined involvement. So they are creating their own networks, and agency exists beyond and within systems. So they are creating these ways within institutional spaces. And it's like a DIY, type of ordeal where they're creating avenues to support their children, to make sure they're cared and loved and their well-being is sustained. Oh, that was a messy presentation. But anyway, el siguiente. El siguiente, por favor.
Yeah.
So what we need to do, especially for my undergrads who are in reservice, know that yes, there are policies, there are systems, there are things that are prescribed to you, but it's good to question those things, right? It's very good to interact with your parents who you serve and to partner with them, right? They are not these people that you have to talk down to, right, as teachers, but they are actually your partners in educating the child and educating their children, and we're also your children if you think about it, right? For research, we could center parent knowledge as expertise, not deficit. So definitely looking at parent experiences, parent knowledge in order to better inform our own educational and research-oriented goals, right? And we also have to remember that, fugitivity frameworks, that really break down barriers and push back against systems which are oppressive. They capture agency beyond what the institution deems as visible, right? All right. All right, guys, these are my references. So yeah, thank you for listening to me. Yeah. Thank you. Any questions? Ponderings? Yes.
I think I'm pondering. I'm not gonna do that whole A or A. I don't have a question and then it's a comment.
Yeah.
All right.
Pondering. This is so great, Andrea. I really liked the metaphor of angel. And I thought about fugitivity and how it was especially for the parent, how it was vigilance as well and protection. So again coming back to the angel and how prayer and all that, it's but then it's the protection, but also keeping an eye out. And all those networks are also that. And I just really appreciate this perspective too, because
as I've taught leaders, and like teaching policy to school leaders, they would talk about the gray areas. And so what you're telling, like, those are folks that are researchers, or honestly, in any job that we might be in, even if it's not education. And they tell you the process, but there's gray areas where you do have freedom or can do things, right? They're still within your job, but they're not taught or said explicitly. And last thing I was gonna say is that I really appreciate it too, because it is often not included in like any kind of undergraduate or even sometimes professional, master's and doctoral level education for people that are working to lead schools or with students and families. It's usually like, I know with my some of my work has been on engagement. It's always like the first time. And these folks have been working in school sometimes 10 years or more. And they're just now starting to unlearn their engagement with families, or lack of rather. So I really appreciate that you're bringing it now and here. It's really important. Thank you.
Yes.
Just to kind of touch on pondering is it was great to have a name for some of the practices that I feel like I implement with my current resource teachers, especially in conversations about this and providing those resources on how do you talk to your students about what ICE is, what's happening, and especially in Texas. I did this past semester have a few students who experienced losing students from their classroom and families disappearing just because they were deported. I feel like the actual word is adopted for what occurred. And that is something that I could not be transparent about with my colleagues because of the state I'm in. And Dr. Fletcher actually came and was a guest speaker, and he experienced being censored by one of my leadership. And so this practice, this fugitivity is something that I feel like I need to learn more about. So thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. Yes, I think that sometimes when you are in a system or when your experience is dictated by things out of your control and you see these harms, right? These actions of harms being inflicted on the kids you partner with, it's really, really difficult to feel that tension of like, well, what should I do? It's against the rules to do this, but in reality, this is what should be done in order to care for the child. I think it's something that teachers in partnership with parents should explore more. And I think that ICE conversation is a really good example because the whole year, it was just like madness. It was like this madness, right? Like we saw our parents and our youth get harmed, like harmed, right? They were kidnapped, they disappeared. And it's really hard to navigate those experiences when your administrator is saying, well, this is what should be done. This is district policy, right? Well, F that. I think that we as educators, as gatekeepers, and as guardian angels of our youth, of the students that we're entrusted with, we need to push back on those oppressive ways of knowing.
Or lazy ways.
The lazy ways of knowing, yes. And building a network, creating your own shadow space at your school is definitely one of those ways in which you could help the youth that you serve and that you partner with. So anyhow, goodbye.
If you'd be willing to share your slides. Sure. So before Marisol begins, we're gonna have a little intermission because we have a group here. They're actually gonna present on Friday. They're gonna be just and look at their negative thing, but since they have an appointment, so they won't stay long with another professor, but this will actually save with introductions on Friday, but just I'm excited that they're here, and some of it, the work is actually related and the sort of the Mexico side of things. So I'm gonna bring them all in. And
to do it.
participated, the reasons they've returned, how old, you know, like just kind of like a lot of just like the historical background of the families. And then my future.
The other thing to say about her, I actually met her here in the front.
Oh, yeah, he was a Fulbright scholar, you know.
She is a distinguished, in that sense, she's a Fulbright scholar. Maybe you can explain what that means, because many of them probably don't know.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I'm an assistant professor of psychology at Wesleyan University, which is essentially a college in Connecticut. And in my 5th year of that position, but in my 4th year, I got a Fulbright fellowship to be able to come during my sabbatical year. And I reached out to Dr. Villavich Pinoza because he had been widely recommended as someone that
No sé si quieres.
Yo soy profesor de la División de Derecho Político y Gobierno, y bueno, tengo el proyecto RAI. Pero ya desde hace dos meses. Y nada, es que venimos a Guanajuato y aprovecho. Vamos a esperar a la vez. Estudio.
La doctora Pasia. Muchos, creo que casi todas son tres décadas. Son pasos muy grandes de seguir. De inaugurar. Más, sí, de estudiantes. Grandes, ¿no? Y un tema muy grande. Como hay una, el la injusticia en el educación. Y un tema de eso. Y
Oh, yeah, of course. I am. ¿En español? Ah, yo soy Alexis Arnocho Carretero, estudiante de aquí de bueno, ya egresado casi, de la licenciatura en Educación en la Universidad de Guanajuato, y pues durante ya varios años hemos trabajado con estudiantes extranjeros y con el propio TOD en varios programas del verano, y pues encantado de estar aquí.
Yo soy Carla, pues yo soy de la licenciatura en Educación y esta es la primera vez que entro al verano.
Yo soy Elena, del Departamento de Educación, y pues ya tenemos tiempo.
¿Y conoces qué hacer?
Y bueno, ya.
No más cosas.
Hola, I'm Patsy Gonzalez, Associate Professor of Special Education at University of Arizona. My research focuses on bilingual youth with disabilities and what they can do when policies and practices integrate their voices, cultures, and like cultural knowledges into school systems.
Okay, yo soy Marisol. I'm a fourth-year PhD student at the University of Arizona in the school psychology program. My research interest is more related to culturally responsive practices and trauma informed in early childhood settings.
Maybe Michelle.
Soy Michelle Silvers. I'm a professor at the University of Houston downtown. I just finished my first year. My research looks at accessibility and environmental learning programs that are field trip based, as well as universal design and informal spaces.
Hola, yo soy Emilia, yo estudié ciencia política aquí en la Universidad de Guanajuato, yo soy egresada y he estado trabajando en el proyecto Países. Ahorita soy la coordinadora, pero pues en un ratito me voy a estar yendo de la coordinación y voy a ir a estudiar maestría en Ciudad de México.
Yo soy Paulina, también estudié la licenciatura en ciencia política aquí en esta división. Soy recién egresado apenas en diciembre y ya tengo como un año más o menos trabajando en el proyecto de raíces en el trabajo de campo.
Hola, yo soy Jimena, también egresada de ciencia política. Tengo 2 años desde que inició el proyecto Raíces aquí en México.
Soy Fletcher, fundador de Español y pues profesor emérito de la Universidad de Arizona. I'm a professor emeritus from the University of Arizona, and I founded Respanor and also the Toronto, Mexico program about 35 years ago, believe it or not. So I've had the bounty of bringing students to Mexico for many years, and it's wonderful to see it's continuing with my two esteemed colleagues, Elsia and Ruth, who are carrying on this project, which I think is really well, the students who've experienced it so far can tell the story. It's very important to meet other students, to go to a different place, a different culture, and be immersed and learn so many new things about the other culture, but about themselves as well. So, welcome. Yo vivo en Cajones, un pueblo al sur aquí de Guanajuato, es donde está habla español con su casa.
Gracias.
Hola, mi nombre es Anaí, yo soy estudiante para ser intérprete del lenguaje de señas.
En la universidad.
En la
No pasa.
Or you can do English too.
Hi, I'm senior. I'm from Moscow University. I'm a third year student. I just finished my third year. I'm like a first and senior last year. And I'm from Professor
Hi, I'm Zaina. I'm also an undergrad at Wesleyan University, also going into my senior year studying psychology and education. I've been part of Proyecto Raíces as a research assistant with UNC since January. Okay.
Andrea.
Oh, hello, everybody. Me llamo Andrea 2.0. Soy una estudiante de doctorado. Estoy estudiando la fuerza y los estudiantes con disabilidades que están driving youth-led movements, organizando para impactar las policías o políticas. Sí, gracias. Mi español no es muy bien, pero estoy aquí aprendiendo y así es.
Hola, mucho gusto. Me llamo Adrián Rodriguez, also from University of Arizona. I also study special education, and I look at accessibility for science and gardening for students with disabilities through the lens of like culturally sustaining pedagogies. It's nice to meet you all.
Hola, me llamo Alondra, soy estudiante de la Universidad de Arizona y estoy estudiando medicina para niños y pediatría.
Hola, mi nombre es Blanca, yo soy pues ya fue entrar en mi segundo año de la maestría, me la estoy haciendo en la Universidad de Arizona, en Higher Education.
Okay.
I'm Amaya and I'm studying elementary education at the University of Arizona in PhD.
Hola, yo soy Luis Ángel, estudio psicología en la Universidad de Guanajuato, en la sede de León, y una maestría en ciencias sociales. Y bueno, estoy como integrándome al equipo. Gracias.
Hola, yo soy Ana Carolina y soy egresada de ciencia política también aquí de la UCE y me reintegré a Proyecto Raíces como asistente de investigación.
Muchas gracias. Digo, qué bien que funcionó esto y así ya conocen cuando llegan el viernes.
El viernes, ¿no?
Sí, hacer su presentación. Tal vez haya unas cuantas personas más. Y los presentamos. Ya sé que tienen una cita. Sí, con la doctora.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Nos vemos el viernes. Mucho gusto.
Sí, justamente otra vez.
Gracias.
Bueno.
Hola, profe, ¿me escucha? Hola, can you hear me?
No, no te escuchamos.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?